Hi everyone, welcome to this review. We're looking at the ES futures on a 500 tick chart with a 21 EMA. I started trading at 8 Central Time, which is this area right here. This is our overnight high, this is our overnight low, these are our key levels for the day. And you can see from yesterday, we were going into this range here, and then the overnight high and low levels from today actually fit pretty well, and kind of just continued into it. So anyway, we have this downtrend. That, of course, gives us our overnight high. When we get the break of the downtrend, that, of course, gives us our overnight low. So price broke the downtrend. You can see we got a first attempt down to there, which let me just zoom in. We got our first attempt down to this bar here, small correction, and then second attempt. That led to a very strong failure, led to two legs up, of course, giving us the overall larger trend up here. So when price overshot, that, of course, led to a break. That overshoots commonly lead to breaks. They commonly lead to very sharp spikes in the opposite direction. And so it's not surprising to see that it overshot before making the two attempts at a new low for this downtrend here. Now, after it pushes down to here, yes, we have our two attempts at a new low for the downtrend, and we also have a break of this uptrend now. And so now that the downtrend has its two attempts at a new low, we're safe to look to go long if we can get something above the EMA, because this uptrend still needs a new high attempt. And so as price pushes higher, this is a good spot to get in on a failed second entry if one sets up well. It just doesn't set one up in this case. We push on up, we get a correction way below the EMA, obviously not great for going long. And then we get our second leg up, and then it doesn't reach the measured move. It just makes a double top with that overshoot swing. And then it pushes on lower. So we really don't get anything here. There isn't any clear entries on the way up. And then there isn't a whole lot of room for anything on the way down either, and nothing sets up anyway. You can see it kind of makes a failed second entry right there. So first entry long, second entry long, failure. But it's obviously very choppy. It's right at that trend line. There's no way that is safe. And so anyway, this thin downtrend here plays out with a break and then a push to a new low, and then we get two attempts to reverse higher, which fail, gives us a lower high. You can see overall it was making these lower highs, slowly pushing on down, attempting a new low for this downtrend. So the downtrend has a break, it has a strong push to a new low, which you can look to get in on this move down. If you get a couple legs back, this is a good spot for a continuation, failed second entry. It doesn't happen here. So it continues lower, it makes that new low, or I really shouldn't say it makes a new low, it makes a double bottom with it, which is borderline. Sometimes it'll count as a new low, sometimes you'll get a full-on reversal just from a double bottom, but sometimes it'll end up needing to come back, make a full-on new low, and then reverse higher. So when this happens here and you're making a double bottom, you really just gotta wait and see how price reacts after before making any real trade decisions. So anyway, we push on lower here, we find resistance. This is a valid downtrend within itself. We get a break, first attempt at a new low, push up to here, second attempt at a new low down to here, and then a failure, and then it launches into this uptrend straight from there. So we go into this uptrend, and as we're pushing higher, we can look to get long on the reversal higher. We did just fade the overnight low, we just faded this range right here from yesterday. But we did not fade the overnight low. We just bounced off the overnight low, which when you come off one side of a range or an overnight level, the overnight range, then you can expect price to attempt to reach the other side. So anyway, as price is pushing higher here, we want to look to get long to get in on this leg, especially because it is borderline, but it is likely the second bigger picture leg up. If it had pushed fully below, then we would not have this drawn up as a two-legged move. If it's above, then we would, and then if it's a double bottom, then we just have to see how price ends up reacting to it. And so anyway, as price pushes up here, you can see we have this thinner uptrend that gets a break, first attempt to a new high, and then second attempt. I did miss out on this right here. I do think it looks good for a failed second entry though, just because of the overall, just how strong this reversal higher was. We get a push up, a couple legs back, holds on the EMA, great bullish reaction. That looks good to ride to the other side of this kind of chop that we were going in. But again, I did miss out on that in the moment. So anyway, price continues up. We nearly reach that measured move. It doesn't quite reach it, but it makes a double top with that previous swing, or I should really say triple top, actually. That measured move leg was hiding that there. So it makes a triple top. It doesn't quite reach the measured move, and it also overshoots the trend that it's in. So that's a few things that lead to reversals, and that's exactly what happens. We start pushing lower. Now, as price pushes lower, we do want to see a couple legs back. We want to see a failed second entry so we can get short. But again, it just doesn't happen. So we just continue on lower. You can see it makes this thin downtrend here. We get a break, push to a new low. Then we get 2 attempts to reverse. And then on that second reversal attempt, it really takes off. And so it pushes up, holding on this, this range low right here. So if it breaks out, fades back in, it has a clear hold right above, that's telling you it's still in play, it's still a valid level. And so anyway, price continues up, goes into this uptrend, and then we get this 2-legged break, perfectly measured. Now, I wouldn't buy this on the measured move, of course, because it's pushing way below the EMA. And it's not like it's in a runaway trend or anything where we can make an exception for that. It's just in the middle of a range, pushing below the EMA. And so you don't want to enter all the way down there. But we get a great reaction to that measured move. We push up, and then you can see the bar I have circled here. I waited for the trigger of that bar because that's the first good bullish bar closing on its high above the EMA. And so I did need to use a limit order because I wanted to get out around that swing. And as you can see, price came back quite a bit, so no problem getting in on the limit order. And then price continues up. Initially, it rejected it, did not get filled at first, needed to wait for this bounce off the EMA, and then it took off like crazy up to the overnight high. So you can see here, let me just talk about this area here real quick. So you see these 2 legs up. Sometimes this can confuse people because they don't know whether this is the 2-legged move up or whether this is the 2-legged move up. If it's borderline like this, oftentimes it really is just both. Like this is clearly, let me just delete that real quick. This leg up and then this second leg up, it's clearly a 2-legged move up. The downtrend has a very large 2-legged break at that point. We get a new low attempt and then it fails very strongly. That's basically what happens. However, if it is a double bottom, it is always worth seeing just how price ends up reacting to that here. And you can see it ends up just cutting through it right like butter. It does have some reactions to it later on, including this trade later on. But I just wanted to mention that there. If it's borderline, you just got to wait and see how price reacts to it. If it reacts to it, then there's something to it. It's really that simple. So anyway, price continues up. We break through this range high and then reach the overnight high. And so you can see, we go into this thin channel here, and then we get this 2-legged break. So uptrend, 2-legged break. However, it's also 2 attempts to reverse off of the overnight high. So what I would like to see at this point is price to just continue lower a bit and then make 2 attempts higher so we can get short on a breakout failure. Because if you get 2 attempts to fade, then that's more likely to lead to a break back out. And so if that second leg continues even further past the down measured move, let me move in here. If price continues lower past this down measured move, then you could get 2 legs back with a hold below that measured move level for a short. So anyway, that doesn't happen. It just makes the 2 legs down, makes another attempt to break back out, but it finds resistance right at the overnight high again. So it kind of just chops around, really nothing great setting up. And then finally, after that triple top right there, we get a more significant reversal. And so we get this leg down, and obviously initially we have a downtrend break, 2 legs to a new low, which leads to a reversal. We get our first attempt to reverse, and then our second attempt to reverse, and then a clear failure. I only entered after the failure was clear. And then if a downtrend plays out like that, you can see downtrend, 2 legs to a new low. If it starts reversing and then it fails to reverse after 2 attempts and it has a significant bearish reaction, in this case, of course, off of this range high, then that's telling you you're getting a bigger picture leg that you need to draw. So what we do is we combine the 2 attempts at a new low with the initial downtrend, and that's why I have this arrow drawn throughout the whole thing. And so then we copy that over, which I already have it copied. You can see here we have our second leg down. Price ends up pushing right on through it here, retesting it, and then I'll get to that in a bit. So anyway, let me just kind of unclutter when I'm there. We go. Yeah. So anyway, the downtrend has a 2-legged break, basically, great reaction, and then I got in with a limit order. I waited for the trigger of this bar here, and then it pushed back up, got filled up there, and then pushed on down to the target. I intentionally kept it basically right above this low right here, because I didn't want to expect it to push on out, just because it was kind of sideways, it was a bit choppy, and I didn't want to expect it to break out of that. So that's why I used such a heavy limit order. But yeah, we had this great measured move in play as well, and target was within there. So this looks like a great trade, and I'm really glad I got that one. We continue lower. We push right on through that measured move. Then we get these two legs back. You can see here, and like I mentioned earlier, or I might not have mentioned it in this video, but I mention it all the time. If you have a measured move level and then price cuts through it like butter and then retests it, that's very common to continue in that direction. Measured moves are good for two things. They're good for buying off of them, not in this case here because it's after a direct reversal off the overnight high. But if you can't buy off of them, then if they push through, you can retest on the other side to continue with the active trend. And so anyway, I'm gonna remove some of the stuff here just because it is kind of cluttered up a bit. And initially we had this downtrend break. So anyway, I'm just gonna kind of unclutter it a bit. So anyway, price met that measured move, or it pushed through it, retested it. I just got in directly on the measured move because it was right after a significant reversal. And so when price, and one more thing I want to mention is when price cuts through a measured move like that, this becomes its own trend as well. So this leg down, it's kind of hard to draw off the highs there, but this leg down is its own trend, and so we have a two-legged break, and we can expect prices to attempt a new low. And so part of the appeal of this trade is keeping it before that swing right there. Of course, you don't know for sure it's going to continue lower, especially if you're just buying it on the measured move. One thing about buying them directly on the measured move, or in this case shorting, is you're getting in as early as possible, but you can really only do this if the context is really great. In this case here, we were in an already very strong active reversal, and we were retesting that previous measured move level along with this trend line here. So anyway, price continues lower, reaches this swing right here, immediately makes two legs up attempting to reverse. It ends up holding off of this green trend line, and then we get a push lower, making a second major leg down. So let me just get rid of that. We got to combine all of these legs here, drag this over to there, and then you can see this is the bigger picture two-legged move down that is forming. So as price continues lower, if we can get a couple legs up with a good bearish reaction, we can look to get short. Ideally, what we could get is a two-legged reaction, a two-legged retest on this level here, which technically happens, but it just doesn't happen well enough. You can see it pushes through, makes a couple small attempts up, reaching it even from this low here. It pushes up with that doji bar, it pushes back lower, and then the second leg up with that green bar, and then it pushes on down. It's just too small picture, and technically it is doing that, but I want to see two clear separated legs, not one leg separated by a doji bar. So anyway, price continues lower here. We break back out of the channel, or I should say the range, and then we go straight back down to the overnight low. So price goes through this measured move, this measured move, as you can see, which I should really draw it from here because that's how I had it before. And so, as you can see, we've reached the measured move. I don't know how it gets, sometimes the measured moves get a little off like that, and then I fix them. So price attempts to reverse, we get this leg up, break, two attempts at a new high, clearly holding below this measured move level. When that's happening and it's just chopping between two levels, you really just don't have much room. I just skipped everything in this area. It's just too choppy, chopping up and down between two price action levels, being the measured move and, of course, the overnight low. I would just skip this area until price either breaks out or fades back in, and then you can look to get in on a much larger trade anyway. So anyway, price continues lower. We reach this right here, which is the whole day measured move, the largest measured move of the day, and then when price reaches it, we get these two attempts to reverse. We don't get any clear entries on it. there's not much room for a long entry on a reversal higher because it's, right into the overnight low, and then right above that is that previous measured move level, and then we're overall in this downtrend. And so really, for a long, we'd want to see price just fade all the way back in here, make a couple legs back down, which would be the 2 attempts at a new low for this downtrend as well, and then we could get long on the fade. But in this case here, it just doesn't happen. We get our first leg up, and then we get our second leg up, and it just continues a bit higher, and then off that retest of the measured move level, that's what finally gets us the breakout. So now we can really start expecting to get a trade because we're moving a lot faster. We're getting out of this chop. And in this case here, it doesn't really offer anything on the way down. It just shoots on down. Very bearish. And what I'd like to see is a 2-legged retest of this level. So if price pushes on out, then I was wanting to see this. But, doesn't happen. We don't get that retest. It would have been nice to get in on a second leg down there, but it just doesn't happen. So we continue lower, and we make this new low. As you can see, we are in this much wider downtrend. So this channel was drawn off the lows. Sometimes you got to draw them off the lows. Typically you draw them off the highs for downtrends, but drawing them off the lows is perfectly valid. It's very overlooked. Sometimes people just forget to do it, and then they'll miss a perfectly valid channel just like this because they don't want to draw it off the lows. And so anyway, it's very important to know that. And price has a very slight overshoot, which leads to a reversal higher. We get an uptrend, break, push up to a new high, and then it continues on down just for a little bit before getting a break of this trend. I would want to see a full-on failed second entry at this point, just because we have an overshoot and it has such a bullish reaction after breaking out of the overnight high, especially after a very strong move like that. I mean, typically moves like this lead to symmetry moves very often. And so I would want to see a full-on failed second entry here. You would have gotten out, it looks like, but it's just not ideal. It's not like a clear 2-legged move. It's just an uptrend playing out with a break and a new high, and then it barely pushing below the EMA. It's just not great for. It's just not great. I would want to see a clear failed second entry. I don't know for sure, but it looks like it's blocked by this anyway. Nearly, yeah. So I would just want to see a much cleaner short here, especially given, we could be going into a full reversal for a fade here. So anyway, price pushes lower here. We continue that fade up. We can have the second leg up, measured move drawn. Price continues higher. And basically we get an uptrend break, first attempt higher, second attempt higher, and then a failure. That failure doesn't get far. It ends up holding on this channel here, breaking out a little bit, but then I did end up extending it to see how price ends up holding. And then we continue up. And also, when you have a slight pierce of a channel, you almost always can extend it pretty much right away, because if it's a small break like that, yes, it is attempting a new high and it could lead to a reversal, but the chances of it reacting are extremely high, and so you might as well just draw another trend line if you don't want to move your whole trend to it. So anyway, price pushes up, reaches this measured move here. I like this trade, but I was not able to get filled on it because I wanted to get in a little earlier than I could. And so as soon as it met that measured move, it's not only reaching that measured move, it's also retesting this major measured move right here, the whole day measured move. And so when it has a bearish reaction like that, that looks great to get in as long as you can get out before support. And in this case here, I was not able to get filled because I used a limit order because I didn't want to enter on the stop entry and push it all the way out, which I would have won. But, again, like I said, price can often react to these extended channel levels, and that's exactly what happens here. Initially it starts finding resistance and then finally drops on down, but I just wanted to get out within this channel right here, and so that's why I used the limit order, and that's why I got no filled. So anyway, price continues lower. We get a break of this uptrend, so uptrend, break, small new high attempt, failure. That leads to a very strong failure. And so we clearly have this 2-legged move down at that point. Measured move is met. When a measured move gets met, we're likely to see a reversal, especially if it's right after the break of a trend. So just to explain the overall context here, this downtrend at this point, has a break and 2 attempts at a new low. So this downtrend could have a great failure at this point. For all we know, it could launch on up from here. So the downtrend has 2 attempts at a new low, and the uptrend has a 2-legged break. So what that's telling us is if price can manage to get above the EMA, we can look to get in on a reversal pattern, on a failed second entry, because excuse me, because this downtrend and this uptrend have confluence. So again, if at this point here, the downtrend is already played out with 2 attempts at a new low, which means that we can look to get in on a new low failure, while at the exact same time it's a 2-legged break of the uptrend where we can expect a general new high attempt anyway. So it's been so bearish at this point. We just rejected this previous measured move level, continued lower. Basically a fade failure just occurred. 2 attempts to fade the overnight high, or I mean the overnight low, and then it failed, and so therefore there's no way that we can safely buy directly on this measured move. But if price can manage to go into a reversal, this is a really great area for one. It just doesn't do it. The bears come in and it ends up continuing on down. So anyway, let me just zoom on in here. Price reaches the measured move. Initially we get these 2 attempts to reverse, very strong failure, price, and then after that failure, price makes a much stronger push higher. At this point, it looks like it's fully reversing, but it doesn't go far. I would want to see, price push on up, make a couple legs back, full-on failed second entry, which would also be the 2 attempts at a new low for the wider channel, because this is a valid channel here as well. And so at this point, if it had set up like this, then it would be downtrend, break, first attempt lower, second attempt lower, and then if you get a good bullish reaction, then this is perfect because this is a great looking failed second entry and you're still expecting that new high attempt for the uptrend. So that's what I'd like to see in this area here. It just doesn't happen. We continue lower, and then as you can see, price ends up retesting that measured move level with 2 legs up. So it doesn't make a perfect 2-legged retest for a short, but it does make, it does retest it on that first leg, break, second leg up, and then it quickly shoots back below after that uptrend plays out. And so we continue lower here, and as price is pushing lower, it's pretty clear to see that this downtrend that has a break and a new low is still making a second attempt. So let's just draw that out. So downtrend, break, first attempt lower, 2-legged correction, and then second attempt lower. I'm going to draw out that measured move level, which is currently getting another retest. And yeah, so it's very important to understand measured move levels. They have a lot to do with, targets and where price reverses at. I mean, look at this. This is to the tick right there. Another one right there, that's to the tick right there, nearly to the tick right there, and then there's other examples today as well. And not all of them are going to do that, and you can't just buy every single measure move you see, but you can learn to refine which ones you take, and it's a really good skill to learn. And yeah, so anyway, as you can see, even though this downtrend has a break and 2 legs at a new low, it is still clearly going onto one channel on a bigger picture. So we'll draw that out here. And overall, even though this downtrend, what was initially just a break and a couple attempts at a new low, has turned into a full-on 2-legged move. So we'll draw that out, and then this is the start of that second leg down. And then we're getting 2 legs up here, so that could even lead to a short to continue the move down to this measured move. It is worth noting, price did just overshoot this channel here, so I would want to see more of a bearish reaction before entering first, especially with it getting above the previous measured move level like that. So anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I really hope this helped out. I really appreciate you all watching, and thanks. I'll see you next time.